All right, it's that time of the week again. You know what time it is. Time for your weekly update on every team around the division, plus some friendly trash talk along the way, some not so friendly trash talk. It's the NFC West Huddle. I'm your host, Ethan McReynolds in Seattle, joined by my friends Richard Sines from Phoenix, Keyshawn Ward from San Francisco, and Ryan Dyrud in Los Angeles of the LAFB Network. Guys, great to see you again. Let's get right into it. Week 2 of the preseason is behind us now, getting ever closer to the regular season. Some teams played their starters, others did not. I mean, we know Sean McVay never does. The Cardinals had a joint practice, but the Niners, they gave the ones some action. So, Keyshawn, I'm going to go to you first with this one. How'd the starters look against the Raiders? What stood out to you from that game?
Well, on offense, the Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall chemistry was on full display. Purdy found it on the first couple of plays, a couple quick passes, but the big play came on 3rd and 18 when Purdy completed a 21-yard pass that converted for the first down, so that was great to see. Then on defense, you know, for the past 2 weeks, the best player on the field for the Niners, not a starter, but definitely making a case to make the 53-man roster, Chase Lucas. This week he had a sack, an interception, a pass breakup, a tackle for loss, and a couple more tackles out on the stat sheet. Then on special teams, Jake Moody. Man, Twitter was going at it with him when he missed that kick in the second quarter. He was able to quiet down the noise. We made a 59-yard field goal to win the game and kind of change the narrative for now, where he's the starting kicker for the Niners. So those are the things that stood out to me in that preseason game for the Niners.
A lot of kicker talk at San Francisco. I can't help but smile a little bit knowing we're feeling pretty good with Jason Myers over here in Seattle. Richard, I'm going to go over to you next for an update on the Cardinals. I know the starters did not play in your last preseason game. Looks like you guys had a joint practice with the Broncos. How did that go for the starters, the joint practice, and then did anything stand out from your second preseason game?
Well, you know, a couple of things stood out right away from this show. When you mentioned the trash talk, and everybody looked at me, and I'm like, what? Am I the drama? Am I the one that's starting the trouble? You know, I'm not the one that's flexing the biceps like somebody over there in San Francisco.
I'm writing that down that you're not the drama, Richard. I'm going to write that down in my diary.
People. Yeah, see, I got my diary too. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm public enemy. I'm the drama here, right? And you know, Keyshawn was talking about a couple of the guys that, you know, over on his team, Chase Lucas and Ricky Pearsall, a couple Sun Devils. So, you know, people here in Arizona like that. Chase Lucas, homegrown talent, good kid. Nice to see him getting some playing time. And he's a guy that you want on that wall. You need on that wall, right? So good stuff from Keyshawn coming out of the gates. Now, as far as the starters, like you mentioned, they didn't play in week 2, but they did play in week 1. And that was the first time that's happened under Jonathan Gannon since he took over the Arizona Cardinals. They hadn't had their starters play, but this year he said he felt it was appropriate. I guess he thought, you know, they had more command of the offense. So, and they played well in that first week. In week 2, once again, the big star has been Jacoby Brissett, the backup quarterback, the veteran quarterback, right? He started with New England, so he's had some starts in the NFL before. So he's played well. And of course, the defensive line getting after, you know, the quarterback was great in week 2, but they took a step back. Overall, I think, in week 2. The joint practices, though, I heard from the coaches, they kind of like them even better than a preseason game because they could actually dictate certain situations that might not develop within a game, down in distance. And they can say, look, you know, create a situation where it's a 2-minute drill, it's, you know, red zone. So they kind of like these joint practices. Don't be surprised to see more teams do that and maybe have less preseason games because of that.
Wow, Richard, well, you saying you're not the drama, I'm going to write that down in my diary. I'm going to laugh about it later tonight because you gave me so much to talk about from the trash talk that I made my own diary. So I don't know what you're talking about over there in Phoenix. The heat's getting to you, I think, over there in Phoenix. Ryan, we know this.
That's the truth.
Yeah, Ryan, Sean McVay very reluctant to play any starters in the preseason. With no ones out there, I'm curious, what have you been looking for? Who stood out against the Chargers in your last preseason game?
Yeah, I feel like McVay almost invented this no starters in the preseason, if you will. And to Richard's point, he loves the joint practices. They had one against the Saints leading up to week 2, and they tried this week to get another one before their game against Cleveland this weekend. Tried to do it with Cleveland. There was a few other teams that they contacted to try to make it happen, but were unable to. But for the game, you know, I think Stetson Bennett was the story of the game. He's their third-string quarterback right now. The real question with him is, can he become the true QB2? Jimmy Garoppolo's on a 1-year deal. We all know about Matthew Stafford. I don't think there's real interest or belief that Stetson Bennett's like the future quarterback starter, but can he just be a sustained backup, and can that development from his time at Georgia really start to grow? We saw it last week against the Chargers on the opening drive. The Chargers played all of their starters on defense, and Stetson Bennett led the Rams down on a touchdown drive against those starters in a very good Jesse Minter defense. So I think his development, he also led a game-winning drive at the end of the game in a 2-minute drill with kind of a Hail Mary play to set him up for a go-ahead touchdown to win it. So Stetson Bennett had a fantastic game. I think he answered a lot of questions there for potentially his future, and also locking him in to not be cut because he would not make it through waivers to the practice squad. I think another team would snatch him up. So it'll kind of force the Rams to keep 3 QBs on their roster. And the last player I'll talk about on offense, Xavier Smith. He's kind of been a journeyman, one of those receivers that's been more of a special teams guy, but he was the leading receiver for the Rams in this game. And if the Rams do keep 6 receivers, I think he is now one of those guys to beat out some of the other guys, to be kind of locked in as a guy that can also return kicks and punts, but also looked great in the receiving game as he led the Rams to that game-winning drive. So 2 offensive players I think stood out. Won't see them probably a ton on Sundays once the season kicks off, but they looked good on Saturday.
Yeah, nice. Well, for the Seahawks, Mike McDonald had the starting offense start the game out, which featured our first look at both Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp, so really fun for Seahawks fans to see them. Kupp didn't even have a catch or a target. Instead, it was the running game that really stood out. The Seahawks marched down the field in that first drive against the Chiefs with no problem at all, 0 resistance from that defense. Granted, was missing some of their key guys like Chris Jones, like a Trent McDuffie, but that offensive line looked dominant. Zach Charbonnet finished it off with a 15-yard run, completely untouched, I might add. Darnold was flawless along the way. He hit all 4 of his throws for 34 yards. And most of the starters were done after that one drive. Mike McDonald had seen enough. He was like, get out of there, guys. But the offensive line stayed in for drive 2, where they continued to dominate. The Hawks ended up running for 174 yards in the first half, over 100 in that first quarter. And it was led by another standout performance from first-round pick Gray Zabel. He looks the part of that 18th overall pick at that left guard position. And right tackle Abe Lucas, who finally looks healthy again. He's going to transform this offensive line if he is fully healthy for the entirety of this season. 6'6", just an absolute giant human being at that right tackle position. It's just a preseason game. I keep having to remind myself that because there's a lot to get excited about. But seeing Clint Kubiak's scheme come to life with that heavy rushing attack complemented by the play-action pass that we've been talking about all offseason, combined with the worry, which was the offensive line looking incredibly sharp, it's really hard not to just get a little bit excited about what this offense can potentially look like upcoming this season. All right. Next topic, we're coming up on cut down day in the NFL. Rosters being cut from 90 players to 53 on Tuesday. So what are some of the key position battles you're still keeping an eye on with one preseason game left? And is there anyone notable that's still fighting for a roster spot? Richard, I'll go over to you first, and your lack of drama, apparently.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to keep the peace, man, and I tell it like it is. So maybe that's what that was laughter right away when I just keep the peace. I think that was Keyshawn laughing at me. I heard that. He's lucky he's got the biceps, otherwise I'd mess with him. But hey, they call it the fight for 53 for a reason, right? Guys are, fighting for a roster spot. It used to be a lot more dramatic, right? A lot more intense before they had these practice squads, but now you can stash guys on the practice squad. But I think the one area I'm going to look at for the Arizona Cardinals is the secondary, and in particular the cornerbacks, right? Because they're going to be young back there no matter what happens, no matter who they cut or who they keep, and they've already had some injuries. So I think depth is an issue, at the cornerback position. Of course, you got Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson at safety. Budda Baker, one of the best in the business. But you got Will Johnson, who I think is going to be the steal of the draft, the rookie out of Michigan, the second-round pick that a lot of people were saying if he was healthy, he could have been a top 5 pick. He was fantastic for the Wolverines, and he's already showing that he is legit in training camp and in the preseason, but he's a rookie. And I think cornerback is the hardest position, other than maybe quarterback, to play as a rookie, just because you're on an island back there. There's no help behind you when you're covering man-to-man. And even a guy like Will Johnson, who's a special talent, is going to have some growing pains. So I think the quarterback position, where you got Max Melton, another young guy out there that is a starter, was a starter, and he's going to get a lot of playing time. So that means the D-line for Arizona is going to have to be really good to put pressure on these quarterbacks to not give them time to just pick these young corners apart.
It'll be fun to watch over the next few days. Keyshawn, over to you next. What position battles are you watching with Cut Down Day right around the corner?
Oh my God, the safety position battle. There's a four-way battle going on right now between Jair Brown, Jason Pinnock, and Malik Mustafa, who's dealing with an ACL injury, so he won't be available. But then Jalen Mahoney, and then also Marquise Siegel, who's actually been the best safety so far since the preseason game started. I mean, Siegel has been on display with coming up with big hits, making great open field tackles. And then Jalen Mahoney, you can't disregard what he did because he's the one that made the dive interception that put the Niners in position to win that game. And then also with Jair Brown, he was drafted in the 3rd round a couple years ago. He got mossed on the first series against the Raiders, but he has so much experience in that secondary, so it's going to be kind of hard to see him not come as a day one starter. And then also, we can't forget about Richie Grant, who played with Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta back in like 2016, 2017. So it's interesting to see who's going to come out and be the 2 starting safeties for the Niners upcoming year while Malik Mustafa recovers from that torn ACL. So I think as of right now, if I was a betting man, I'll probably pick Siegel and probably Jair Brown, who'll be the starting safeties once it comes up to the season opener against Seattle.
All right, I'll go next. The biggest position battle coming into the preseason for the Hawks was at right guard. And after 2 standout performances in the preseason, I mean dominant standout performances, Anthony Bradford looks like he's locked that spot up. That puts a pair of 2024 draft picks in 3rd rounder Christian Haynes and 6th rounder Satoa Lamea on the chopping block. Haynes would be tough if they dropped him. He was their top offensive line pick a season ago. He could be a cut candidate, potentially. We'll see. We haven't really seen much from him over this preseason training camp. The other spot was at center. Jalen Sundell has been starting out there and looks to have the edge on Oluwatimi, who's been battling some injuries. Both guys figure to make the roster, so no cut candidates there, but this 3rd preseason game should decide who starts week 1 there. And then for me, the most intriguing spot is at the wide receiver position. The Seahawks signed veteran Marquez Valdez-Scantling this offseason to a 1-year, $4 million contract to be their 3rd wideout, obviously behind JSN and Cooper Kupp. Well, 5th rounder Torrey Horton, who starred in week 1 of the preseason, we've talked about him on the show. He's been getting reps with the ones ahead of MVS. MVS, not much experience on special teams, so you'd figure, he would be a cut or trade candidate if the Seahawks feel good enough about Horton as their 3rd wide receiver. The one wrinkle, though, and it's hard for me to get by this, Horton only fell to the 5th round of the draft because of injury concerns. He's absolutely shown his talent both in-game and on the practice field. But he also left the Hawks' last preseason game in the 1st quarter because of a knee injury, and he hasn't returned to practice since. So how could that factor into the MVS decision? I'm really curious to see how the Seahawks manage that, especially with the contract. Are they willing to eat the money? And do they think they need MVS to sort of be a safety blanket behind Torrey Horton, if Torrey Horton's even ahead of MVS on the depth chart? So curious to see if MVS can show anything in this final preseason game. He's been pretty irrelevant so far. All right, Ryan Dyer of the LAFB Network, you're up next. What do the Rams still need to iron out this weekend before Tuesday's cut day and then moving ahead to week 1?
Yeah, so we actually just dropped our full 53-man roster prediction over on LAFBnetwork.com, so shameless plug there if anyone wants to check that out. But a couple positions to note. I think the tight end position is one to watch, and kind of how Richard mentioned with the cornerbacks, I think tight end is also a really tough position as a rookie to transfer because not only you need to know all the passing plays, but you need all the checkdowns and all the different rushing blocking schemes as well when you're on the line of scrimmage. So Terrence Ferguson was their first pick in the 2nd round, but seemingly beginning of camp, he was taking a little bit longer to develop or at least progress in the system than they may have liked, and then he ends up getting injured and missed almost 2 weeks. So I think for that alone, the team is going to be forced to kind of keep 4 tight ends on this roster when you look at Colby Parkinson and Tyler Higbee as the clear-cut starters, with Davis Allen, a former 5th-round pick out of Clemson, still on a rookie contract, but further along in his maturation, just because I don't think Ferguson is fully ready yet to kind of take that next leap that they're hoping. So I think they're forced to kind of keep 4 tight ends there, which is kind of a lot at that tight end position, but I think what they'll have to do. And then when you look at linebacker, it's a position that the Rams have not really prioritize. Obviously, Ernest Jones is in Seattle because of that very reason, a guy that they were in love with and then seemingly traded to the Titans. Bobby Wagner from the Seahawks, they signed to a 5-year deal, cut him after 1 year. But they might end up keeping 4 or 5 in that interior room just because of how close the competition is. I think Omar Spates, a former UDFA last year, and Nate Landman, another former UDFA, are your clear-cut starters. But then they've got drafted Chris Paul out of Ole Miss in the 5th round. He's had some good moments in camp. They re-signed Troy Reeder, another UDFA who they seem to love and wore the green dot some last year, and Sean Dolak, another UDFA out of Buffalo, has shown some good stuff. So they're not going to be able to keep all 5, that's for sure. It's more of who they think they can slip through to the practice squad, and whether that's keeping 3 guys or 4 in order to do that will be the question. So some other questions at DB, but I think those 2 positions are kind of the big groups to watch of how many they actually do keep.
You know, Seahawks fans thanking the Rams for the Ernest Jones move. We are very happy with him and looking forward to a full season with him in a Seahawks uniform. All right, let's move on next. What injuries are you monitoring as Week 1 gets closer? And are there any key contributors that could miss Week 1? Ryan, I want to go to you first with, Matthew Stafford's status sort of up in the air this whole preseason. What's the latest on him and any other guys that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, we've probably talked about it every week, but we've talked about it every day on our program because it's kind of, you have to, right? That's your starting quarterback. So Stafford, as of today, during media availability, he actually spoke to the media himself for the first time since training camp started. So he's been a full go with no limitations all week. So as of now, seemingly looks great. However, he himself said this is going to be a day-to-day thing. So it's something that can flare up whenever, wherever, and so there's really no he's over the injury and good to go. So we'll have to see when he starts actually taking hits, in Week 1, going up against Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter with the Houston Texans, some premium pass rushers, and so how's that back going to look in the recovery stages after? But as of now, there's no indication that he's at any risk of missing Week 1, and he has looked great in practices this week. So we'll keep monitoring. That's the big one. The other one is the guy that's supposed to be protecting that back, and that's starting left tackle Alaric Jackson, as he continues recovering from blood clots, has still had 0 physical reps, has done walkthroughs, has done individual drills, but I don't see a world where without practicing at left tackle with any actual physical gameplay, you're starting Week 1. So to me, he's a guy that's probably going to start the season on the injured reserve list, meaning he'll miss the first 4 games. And then you slide in former Arizona Cardinal DJ Humphries as your starting left tackle, who obviously only played 2 games with the Chiefs last year because of injuries. So a lot riding on him to protect Stafford's back, because that's obviously the big key. So outside of those 2, Rams are actually fairly healthy the rest of the way. Terrence Ferguson did return to practice this week, and he will play in this preseason game for the first time of the preseason. So the 2 big ones, Stafford and Jackson, and we'll see what they look like come Week 1.
Yeah, a lot of intrigue from not just here on the NFC West Huddle across the division, but across the entire league with what's going on with Matthew Stafford. We'll continue monitoring that with you, Ryan. Richard, let's go over to you. What injuries are you monitoring right now with the Cardinals?
It's been a pretty good offseason, training camp, and preseason for the Arizona Cardinals. No major injuries, right? When you think about it, you still got Kyler Murray's healthy, James Conner, Trey McBride, Budda Baker. Those are all guys where you're like, man, anybody but them, right? Your leaders, your veterans, and they've even been pretty much healthy on the offensive line. A couple guys, banged up, but nothing major. The only major one has really been, for that 2nd year in a row, this is the crazy part, Walter Nolan, the #1 pick for the Arizona Cardinals, goes down. Last year it was Darius Robinson, and he went down even before training camp started, and it was the same injury as Darius Robinson, which was a calf injury. And the thing that makes it really scary is those calf injuries can linger. I mean, you got to be, for Darius Robinson, he finally came back after the regular season started last year. Everyone was so high on him on that D-line, getting after the quarterback, which is what the Cardinals want to do, what they know they need to improve on. And even when he came back last year, he wasn't the same. And when you look at the NBA Finals, Tyrese Halliburton kind of rushed back with his calf injury. The Achilles, it's all connected, so you don't want to rush a guy back and then have him have a setback like that. So that was a major blow for the Arizona Cardinals. A guy that they were so high on. The coaches were giddy when they drafted Walter Nolan. Knowing he's got a high motor, he can get after a guy. So that was a big blow. But other than that, it's been a pretty calm offseason, training camp, preseason for the Arizona Cardinals injury-wise. But I just want to make one note. I know it's the preseason, but when you look at Ryan Dairu's beard, he's already in the regular season. And I just want to ask, is the hair supposed to be here and not up here? Because I see Keyshawn and Ryan, and I can grow a beard. I just don't have to, I won't shave in the morning. I can have it, by 5 o'clock. And I paid a lot for this wig. This is a good horsehair here. I could just rip that off and but I don't know. Did I miss the memo? I don't know what's going on, Ethan, because we don't have it here, but we have it up here. But these guys have it the opposite. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, hey, Richard.
After the show, can you give me your wig guy? Maybe I just need your wig guy. So give me that after the show.
Oh, he's the best, man. Well, some good horsehair up here. I'm telling you, man. Some of the best.
Yeah, Richard, if you do it, I'll do it. That's all I'll say. Shoot me a text. Okay. We'll get that going.
You might have to change my name to Graybeard, but I'll have a beard, I promise.
There we go. All right. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you, Richard. That'll be fun. All right, I'm gonna go next to the Seahawks. We got a few injuries that we're looking at. The one I'm watching the closest, second-year linebacker Tyrese Knight. He's been battling a knee injury, but also has a separate medical issue, according to Mike McDonald. Those were his words. He hasn't practiced in a couple weeks. The Hawks are pretty thin at linebacker behind him. Could he miss week one? I have no clue. There's been no indication either way. Mike McDonald talking today on Thursday when we're recording this episode. Sounds optimistic, but did not issue a guarantee that he would play week one. So the mysterious nature of the medical issue, we have no details on what it could be. That worries me a little bit, especially with the lack of depth. So that's who I'm watching the closest. Another guy, edge rusher Uchenna Nwosu. He's played just 6 games each of the last 2 years because of injuries. He's currently on the physically unable to perform list, but he was recently cleared to practice, which is a big hurdle to getting him back for week one. The Hawks could absolutely use him on that defense. He had 9.5 sacks his last fully healthy season in 2022. And the last one I'm watching, Ken Walker III. When are we not monitoring his injury status? He's been dealing with a sore foot all throughout camp. Hasn't taken a snap in preseason yet, and actually he won't. He started in that joint practice with the Packers today, actually, so that's a good sign. The question for K9 has never been his talent on the field. It's always been about durability. Mike McDonald said they are being careful with him. They are being cautious, but he should be ready to go for week one against the Niners. And speaking of the Niners, let's go over to Keyshawn. How are the Niners doing on the injury front? Just over 2 weeks away from your first loss of the season at Lumen Field.
Man, Ethan, we are going through that injury bug just like last year. I believe Kyle Shanahan said that they have probably 20 players or more on the injury list. But here's the difference. Last year it was more of the core pieces, whether it's like a Christian McCaffrey or Fred Warner. But this year it's like more of the backups and the depth. So that's why it's kind of like, all right, it's bad, but at least some of the main guys are not hurt. But as far as this coming season opener with the Seattle Seahawks, I think I'm a little concerned about Dominic Puny and Juwan Jennings. So Puny, he has a sprained right knee or left knee. I can't remember the exact, but it's a sprained knee. And as of right now, he's probably on the fringe of not playing the game one of the season. Just because of that knee injury, when it happened on the PAT against the Raiders, he couldn't really put a lot of pressure on it, so that's a bad sign right there. He's a cornerstone on the offensive line outside of Trent Williams. And then Juwan Jennings hasn't took not one preseason snap ever since his calf injury. Now, it's not funny, but the fans, they believe it might have something to do with his contract situation because he didn't get paid by the Niners. So that'd be interesting to see what they plan to do with that. But that's kind of why they traded for Sky Moore yesterday. I think there's concerns that Jennings will not be available week one. And also, the rookie, the speedster out of Ole Miss, Jordan Watkins, was a high ankle sprain. So at least some of the core pieces are at least healthy, but some of those guys like Juwan Jennings, Dominic Puny, they might not be ready for week one.
And that injury bug keeps biting the 49ers. We're going to keep monitoring that. All right, let's go over to our final topic of the show. Madden 26 came out last week. I know you guys are all big Madden players. Everyone loves to debate those Madden ratings, so I thought I'd ask the experts and you guys, did they get your team right? And who is your most underrated and overrated player? Let's start with the most overrated team. The San Francisco 49ers. Keyshawn, you guys finished 6-11, but you guys have the top 5 rated guys in the division. How is that possible? What's going on here?
Shots fired.
Hey, man, we got nothing but gold jackets. I mean, from Trent Williams, George Kittle, Fred Warner. I mean, do I got to keep going? Nick Bosa. These guys are going to be future Hall of Famers, arguably first balloters. So, hey, that's becoming territory. But when you say overrated, are you saying overrated on our team or overall in the Madden ratings?
In the Madden
general?
ratings, who did they give that you think should maybe be rated a little bit lower?
Oh, my God. Calais Campbell. Sorry, Richard, but I saw Calais Campbell. He was higher than Denominator Lenore, who didn't give up a single touchdown last year. I think that guy is probably the most underrated corner in the NFL as we speak. Now, and then most of the masters, they'll say probably Brock Purdy, because he's only 84 overall, but I probably up him a little bit more. He should be above Chuba Hubbard. I mean, yeah, Chuba Hubbard, had 1,000 yards of scrimmage yards last year, but Purdy's probably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Not top 5, but at least at the fringe of top 10. So, yeah, those probably my overrated and underrated for the Niners.
LAFB Network's Ryan Dyrud, you're next. Did Madden get it right with your Rams and give me an underrated and overrated player from your squad?
Yeah, I think it was actually pretty spot on. I feel like, and I'm not the biggest Madden guy, but you can usually correlate, at least in the fantasy world and the Madden world. They all kind of tie in together. But I think they got it fairly right. Matthew Stafford comes in at an 88, which puts him as the 5th ranked quarterback in the Madden game. And in football, he kind of falls in those rankings across the board, no matter who you talk to, in that kind of 5 to 7 range. So I think that was right. If I'm going overrated, Rams specifically, and this is no disrespect, but the top-rated Ram is actually Davante Adams with a 90. I love the pickup. I love what Adams is going to bring to this receiver room with the experience. Still had over 1,000 yards last year, even split between 2 teams, the Jets and Steelers. But I would have put Puka Nacua over Adams just based on what Nacua's done in this offense with Sean McVay, with Matthew Stafford, and I would have had Nacua as kind of wide receiver 1 in my Madden rankings. For underrated, I'll go with Poona Ford. They signed him from the Los Angeles Chargers last year. He gets an 80 rating, but he is an absolute run stuffer in the middle and just a monster. And usually those run stuffing guys don't get the same love as the pass rushing quarterback sacking guys, so that might be part of it. But he is going to be integral to this defense, a defense that struggled mightily against the run, a la against the Philadelphia Eagles. They gave up 200-plus yards to Saquon Barkley both times they saw him. So a guy like Poona Ford is going to be huge, and he has been drawing rave reviews from his teammates, from his coaches. So he's a guy fundamentally for this team is, I think, worthy of much more than an 80 ranking. So that's where I'd put it for underrated and overrated.
There you go. Seahawk legend Poona Ford over there in L.A. getting the underrated nod from Ryan. We get Ernest Jones. You guys get Poona Ford. There's a little symbiotic relationship going on here.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah. Richard, I want to go over to you. Kyler Murray, not even an 80 overall. I actually wrote that. I actually wrote this down in my diary because I thought it was so funny. I was really excited to talk to you about it. He's below your favorite quarterback of all time, and Geno Smith in the Madden ratings. Whoa, what's up with that?
My head's like just exploding. But before we talk about that, I want to give some props to Keyshawn because he's going to help out the Chimichangas in the draft. I'm putting it in my diary. All the injuries for the 49ers wide receivers. Ricky Pearsall should be a good pickup. And I have the 5th pick, so if Christian McCaffrey's there at 5, I'm going to take him. I'm thinking I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey with the 5th pick. But when it comes to the actual Madden ratings, yes, my eyes went straight to Kyler Murray, a 79. What is going on here? Nobody's overrated for the Cardinals because they never get any respect. So just don't even ask me about overrated guys. Underrated is Kyler Murray, 79 between Bo Nix and Drake May. Like, what's going on here? I think Kyler Murray should be at least an 83 when you consider his rushing, because he runs way more and a lot better than both of those guys I just mentioned. So Kyler Murray, underrated. And then Travis Kelce is a 93. Trey McBride is a 92. What year is this? What are we talking about? Do you get extra points if you date Taylor Swift? Do we got to check in with Trey McBride's girl, see how hot she is, to get him some more Madden points? Like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, I just can't believe that. And then you got, Keyshawn's giving my guy Calais Campbell a hard time. At least Buda Baker got a decent rating, right? He's, 92, highest on the team, 3rd highest in the game. Buda Baker deserves that, but this Travis Kelce, Trey McBride stuff, I mean, Kelce is still a decent tight end, but he's not what he used to be, and he's not better than Trey McBride. So once again, the Cardinals get 0 respect. They're all underrated. Nobody's overrated on that team, especially when it comes to the Madden world.
Yeah, I feel like Taylor Swift has accounted for something, right? Maybe a +5 on the overall boost or something like that. I don't know. That doesn't really make too much sense for me. Yeah, there we go.
The Swifties have some influence.
There we go.
On
Catering to the new NFL audience right there. You know, I don't know how many Swifties bought the new Madden, but maybe that's going on. Let's go to the Hawks. I didn't have much of a gripe with our ratings overall. Devin Witherspoon tied with Kenneth Walker on top of the rosters at an 88. No problems with Spoon being there. I think that's completely deserved. 2 years, 2 Pro Bowls. He's been exceptional. K9, he's going to be my pick for most overrated. He's incredible when he's on the field, but he's not an 88 in my opinion, nor is he one of the best players on the roster, let alone tied for the best. I think an 85 or an 86 would be more appropriate for him. Hope he proves me wrong this season, though. He's got to stay on the field. As for underrated, I've got 2 guys. The first, running back Zach Charbonnet. He's at a 78 overall, 10 full points below Ken Walker. The gap is just not that big. Ken Walker's an incredible back, but so is Charbonnet. Charbonnet could end up being the starting running back by the time the season ends with how his style fits Clint Kubiak's scheme, always running north-south. Walker more of an east-west guy, likes to dance around. And when Walker was hurt, Charbonnet played really well in his place, especially in weeks 13 and 14. He ran for almost 200 yards on 30 carries between the 2 games, over 6 yards a carry. I'd bump Charbonnet up to the low 80s at the very least. I expect him to be in the mid-80s by the end of the season. My other guy, Leonard Williams. I mean, the disrespect for this guy is crazy. Going back to last year, not being named an All-Pro. Madden has him at an 87, despite him being one of the most productive interior defensive linemen in the league last year. A career year for him. 11 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, a 92-yard pick six. I could go on. Then you compare his numbers to Jalen Carter, who's up at a 90 overall, 3 points higher than him. Just 4 sacks and only 12 tackles for loss for Carter. Integral part of that Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles defense. I get it, but I don't have a problem with Carter being a 90, but Leonard Williams should absolutely be up there too. So hopefully he proves them wrong this season, uses it as motivation. All right. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the NFC West Huddle. One more week of talking preseason, guys, and then we get to start talking about the games that actually count as Week 1 is quickly approaching. Excitement building here on the show. Tune in next week for more talk around the division. Until then, have a great night.
Do I take my wig off now or do I wait? I don't know. Should I take it off?
Let's wait,
the wig.
Richard.
I don't know. Should I take Keep it on? Keep it on. Okay.
Yeah, have a great night.